Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh of Severe Weather. Happy Wednesday to you. We've got a ton of things going on in the weather world to talk about. I'm really going to have to go pretty quickly today, but lots going on in the tropics in really all of the basins, and severe weather and winter weather combining here in the plains over the next few days. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you what we're going to be taking a look at. And I think the first thing that really stands out to a lot of us is that despite El Nino, the waters have been warm and we're seeing significant numbers of storms. Fortunately, not a lot affecting the US, but still significant numbers of storms in the tropics this year. And what's really been an unprecedented season due to the fact that water temperatures have been extremely warm. And we've been tracking an area of low pressure in the Western Gulf, which is going to bring very unsettled weather, heavy rain, some severe weather into Florida, heavy rain and gusty winds to the central Gulf states into the southeast today, and then towards Bermuda later tomorrow. Tropical storm conditions will be possible. And it's looking unlikely this system will get named, but it is going to be an impactful storm. Now, behind it, we've got a pair of systems to watch. Newly formed Tropical Storm Sean, which looks like the least of the threatening systems. That's going to track west-northwest and coming closer to the islands than it looked like it would a few days ago if it survives. Behind it, I think we may have another tropical storm, one that just came off of Africa, which didn't look like it was going to develop, but now today models are starting to flip on that, and we do have an area to watch in the Caribbean next week. We're still going to keep an eye on the gyre here around Central America next week for potential development, something that could drift north into the Northwest Caribbean, maybe even into the Southeastern Gulf after that. And that's just the Atlantic. Things are very busy as well in other parts of the world, and I'll talk about that. But we do have new Tropical Storm Sean, and that is near 35 west. Behind it, another area that we now do have to keep an eye on that has a 10% chance of formation in the next 48 hours and a 20% chance in the next 7 days. And honestly, I think these chances are going to climb, and we may see a storm following Sean. The next name on the list would be Tammy. And if we do have something in the Caribbean beyond that, the next name would be Vince. And, it's possible, too, that this low pressure that's zipping through Florida here tomorrow could try to become a hybrid storm system that we'll have to keep an eye on near and just south of Bermuda. Here's a look at the Atlantic Basin. You can see, while there is one area that stands out as extremely quiet, that's the Caribbean. We do have quite a bit going on outside of that, and I'm going to show you kind of everything here. Oops, everything got changed on me here. Oh, Zoom updated, and now I have to find a new toolbar. Sorry about that. But let me see if I can get the area that I was looking at. There it is. All right, here we go. So we do see here newly formed Tropical Storm Sean, and it looks kind of healthy, but it's going to run into this large area of high pressure, sinking air, which is not favorable for tropical systems to survive. So it's going to be an uphill battle. A little bit of wind shear coming in out of the west as well, but Sean is generally expected to come in this direction. May fall apart, and if it does so, it could turn back to the west a little bit here. There's also a chance that it tries to sneak in a little bit stronger and a little bit farther south for the time being. Behind it, we've got a new flare-up, and this is our next area to watch. I think it'll be Invest 94L here, probably by the weekend, and that is likely to take a lower latitude below Sean, maybe more in this general direction. After that, there's a lot of uncertainty. It could turn this way or could still head towards the Caribbean. So something that we need to keep an eye on. We do have this area that was Invest 93L, no longer tropical. It's actually merging with this cold front here, and that is going to send a ton of moisture and a ton of rain up into this portion of the southeast today, tonight, and especially early tomorrow. And then we have what was Hurricane Lidia, which has now become a remnant low, still in place here heading towards South Texas. That's all just going to merge with this front. So a front with two low pressure areas attached to it, one non-tropical and one that was tropical. And we do have to keep an eye here on this gyre that is forming south of Central America as models try to pull it up in this direction or in this direction. It may split into two, but we do need to keep an eye on things here in the Western Caribbean for gradual development next week. That's a ways off, so we're not going to talk too much about it, but it is certainly something that I will be watching for you all very closely next week. Here's a look at the infrared, and you can see looping back to yesterday, Hurricane Lidia, and I'm going to zoom in to show you that. Here was once Tropical Storm Max. Here was our low pressure area over the southwestern Gulf, which is drifting north and no longer tropical, and a flare-up of storms here over Central America as well. And now, as you can see, things have evolved, and everything that's hit Mexico has weakened below tropical storm strength, but we still have that moisture left behind and a lot of flooding over parts of central Mexico. And that moisture gets infused into our front here over the northern Gulf. And you can see we are going to have continual amounts of very heavy rain and gusty winds over the northern and eastern parts of the Gulf in the next couple of days. And keep an eye on these thunderstorms in the central Gulf as they will be potentially getting some kick from the jet stream here. Let me, well, I can't really do much. I'm going to stop this and move it forward for you guys here to see. And you can see this area of thunderstorms, while it's not going to form into a tropical low, that is all aimed at Florida late tonight and tomorrow. There will be some increased wind shear, and that's not good for this to become tropical, but it is good for potentially some low-end tornadoes to form here late tonight into tomorrow. And I'm going to talk about that severe threat across the Florida Peninsula because it is something that we do have to keep an eye on. Let me find my pencil just to kind of annotate things for you here. Sorry, they changed everything on me, and as usual, I was not prepared because I was up early this morning, but not early enough, because you can never be up too early in this business. Here are the area of thunderstorms that we are watching, and they are generally tracking in this direction. And with the temperature difference between the water and the land, there could be localized circulations that we have to keep an eye on moving into the Tampa Bay area late tonight, probably after 3 in the morning and continuing into tomorrow morning. And I'm going to show you guys more of that here in the coming frames here. In the Eastern Atlantic, you can see, let me move this along here, things have very quickly gone busier here in the main development region in October. That's pretty much unheard of to see not one tropical storm, but maybe another future tropical storm. But this season has been one of a kind here. You know, the European seasonal forecast had 20 named storms. We're up to number 19 now with Sean. My forecast was 18. I tried not to be too aggressive with it, but I was underdone. I think everybody was. But the 20 named storms got a lot of head scratches from hurricane forecasters. They said, oh, this is not going to happen. Well, now that's probably going to be the low end of what we end up with this year. And there've really only been about 3 other hurricane seasons that had that many storms. 33, 95, 2005, and then 2020, which had 30 named storms. That was a one-of-a-kind season, of course, in a La Nina. But now we're in an El Nino, and we're talking 20 storms for the 5th time, and that is unheard of. So it's crazy, but we got to catch our breath. Here's a look at the Pacific real quick. And I did want to show you the evolution of Tropical Storm Max, which hit east of Acapulco and weakened quickly. And then Lidia, which seemed to come out of nowhere, was a tropical storm, became a hurricane yesterday morning and strengthened very quickly, rapidly to Category 4 strength. And you can see here that it made landfall last night near Puerto Vallarta as a Category 4. And that thing bombed out. It strengthened by over 60 miles per hour in 24 hours. It changed categories like some of you change channels on your remote. Just insane. My thoughts and prayers were everybody here in Mexico. That was a 140 mile per hour storm when it hit. All of the models did show intensification, but most had it as a 1 or a 2. Some of the hurricane models did show it getting close to Cat 4, and they were actually on it here. But fortunately, that storm has weakened very much so from major hurricane last night to a remnant low today over central Mexico and getting caught up in our southwest flow aloft. So an incredible system to see. But now that we're looking at the tropics, we have potential trouble again. And the European says on the ensembles, this could have tropical depression strength. It's probably not going to be fully tropical, but those winds will potentially impact Bermuda here as we head into late tomorrow night, early on Friday. Here is Tropical Storm Sean, and it shows the next system behind it also developing. This is a non-tropical low, by the way, a gale force storm. But you can kind of see here, it just zips right across the Atlantic towards the Azores by early next week. Sean is beginning to fade. The next system could hang on here, but may fade as well. And then we've got to keep an eye on Central America by the 20th or 21st. And as we get farther into time, there's going to be less agreement on potentially where storms are. But end of next week here, keep an eye on things in the Windward Islands, Barbados, Martinique, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Keep an eye on this here for next weekend, as it could be something to keep an eye on. And here are the ensemble plots. And this gets confusing because it's just a bunch of spaghetti, but you can see our non-tropical low may try to pick up strength here near just south of Bermuda, but moving very quickly. So conditions in Bermuda could be kind of bad, but very quickly, and then very quick improvement by the end of the week. Here is Sean, and you can see it's starting to gain some latitude. Here's our next system, which models are starting to develop now into a depression or storm, believe it or not. And then you can see Sean here has two possible paths. One, continuing northwest. Eventually, it's going to recurve around this big high right here. But there are some solutions which bring it closer to the Leeward Islands. We saw this with Philippe, where models have to correct themselves farther south and west. If it does approach those islands, I think it's going to be very weak, no stronger than what Philippe was like here last week. But something I do want you guys to keep an eye on, obviously, as more models show that. And oh, by the way, you can see a lower latitude here with the next future storm, which several solutions do bring towards the islands here. This would be around the 20th and 21st, so end of next week into the following weekend. And then over the gyre, of course, we're going to see all kinds of solutions here. But the Canadian has been continuing to show a threat here in the northwestern Caribbean. Here is that Canadian model that I talked about. Here you can see Sean. Here you can see our system moving quickly across northern Florida towards the south of Bermuda here tomorrow, Friday morning. And you can see Sean's already kind of turning right and fading. And then what could be maybe Tammy behind it here, following kind of a similar path. Then you can see low pressure forming on both sides of the gyre. One side of the Pacific here, south of El Salvador, the other side north of Honduras. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but the Canadian continues to show something forming in the Northwest Caribbean. This particular run threatening the Yucatan on the 20th. Runs before it showed slightly different solutions. In fact, the one this time yesterday showed it aiming more towards Cuba and the Florida Keys. And with this being 10 days away, it is still too soon to make that call. I just want you guys to be aware that I'll be watching that area right now. I don't necessarily think it develops, but something to keep an eye on. The GFS model takes our developing low along our front here near Bermuda here overnight tomorrow night, and then pushes it away on Friday. Here's Sean, and it too doesn't think Sean has much of a future, but it does show it trying to turn back to the left early next week towards Tuesday, maybe making a run at the Leeward Islands as a remnant low. It does not really develop the system behind it until later next week, and by Friday it's got low pressure coming in farther south, turning to the northeast of Barbados on Saturday, and then potentially threatening the Leeward Islands, although this run of the GFS says it's going to be a recurving storm and miraculously strengthening into a strong hurricane, which I don't think is going to happen, but that's certainly a possibility. If it makes the turn and goes into lower wind shear, it could have that opportunity. The GFS model does not have the gyre developing anything in the Caribbean, so again, that's very uncertain, but it does show something on the Pacific side here, riding the Mexican coast, which is the last place you want to see a storm right now due to the fact that it's been so busy. Here's a look at the evolution of Sean. This is yesterday afternoon. You can start to see a tighter circulation, and last night that was upgraded to tropical depression strength. And this morning we see it now as a tropical storm. Whoops, I got ahead of myself. But yep, here you can see definitely more of a concentration here last night, becoming a depression right here, and now a tropical storm. And let me just move that forward here, speed that forward for you guys. And Tropical Tidbits is going to load it slowly, but we'll go back a frame. There we go. And you can see more concentration of thunderstorms here early this morning over the eastern Atlantic. Behind it, strong area of convection as well, which has just left Africa, and something that looks like it's going to have to wait for Sean to move away, but could develop as well into potential Tammy. Here's a look at Tropical Storm Sean. Winds are now up to 40 miles per hour. It could strengthen a little more up to 50. The Hurricane Center does not buy into the fact that it will strengthen over time. In fact, it kills it off as a remnant low early next week and turns it back towards the left. As you can see, there's a lot of uncertainty with this, but right now, staying over the central Atlantic, ensembles and tropical storm guidance shows a lot of uncertainty, but several solutions kind of bending back to the left here, which would be something to keep an eye on in the Leeward Islands. And the GFS ensemble says the control actually takes it over the Leeward Islands. The ensemble mean takes it just right and turns it. And the operational, the deterministic model, makes that turn back to the left, believe it or not, but kills it. So we have a lot still to figure out here with this newly formed tropical storm. I expect we're going to see a little more certainty tomorrow, but still several possible solutions, something that tries to reform up in here, something that fades down in here, or something weak that moves through the Leeward Islands here in about 9 or 10 days. And here are our tropical intensity forecasts, and a lot of them don't even bring this past tropical storm strength by the time we get later into the week. They kill it as a weakening low by the weekend. Some continue to keep it a tropical storm into next week, and a couple of outliers try to make it a hurricane here by the end of this weekend. The HAFS also says, hey, this still has some life in it. It's going to weaken, You can see that weakening here on Friday and Saturday, but it may survive that stronger wind shear, and pressures drop down into the 990s again. And you can see this track is more east to west. So keep an eye on it in the Leeward Islands. I don't think it'll necessarily hit you, but it's something that we need to keep an eye on. In the Pacific, Lidia is now a remnant low. It was a Category 4 yesterday evening, and now a remnant low, moving very quickly northeast over the mountains of Mexico, and that will just get absorbed into our front. And you can see the tropical models still try to run it, but you can see it going into the Western Gulf and merging with our system towards Louisiana here. And if that weren't enough, speaking of changing channels quickly, this is Bolaven. It made landfall just north of Guam as a Category 1 storm early in the day yesterday, and then went to town yesterday. And you can see the eye forming, and not just a forming eye, but just a very healthy looking structure. And here is our last image, and it's got that buzzsaw look of a super typhoon. The wind speeds on this, potentially 170 miles per hour. So the remarkable thing to me as a meteorologist is seeing two storms go ape here in just 24 hours, one in the Western Pacific, one near Mexico. But that's actually kind of classic El Nino. But here we are in October, and obviously maybe a sign of the times here where we're seeing stronger storms that form and strengthen more quickly. The good news, though, about Bolaven is even though it's got winds of 165 to 170 and may keep those winds for another day, it is going to recurve and go well east of Japan and then lose its tropical characteristics over the northern Pacific. The bad news is that that remnant recurving system is going to bring unsettled weather and a strengthening jet into the west coast here at some point later in October. Speaking of the west coast, we had a big storm move in. That is going to move into the Rockies, and you can see quite a bit of spin with this system as it moves into the plains here tomorrow night. You can also see our Gulf system bringing quite a bit of spin into the southeast. So we've got two significant storms tracking across the country and more severe weather to talk about. We've been talking tropics for a long time, and now we need to talk severe weather, unfortunately. Here's a look at the GFS model. You see our one low moving into the Big Bend of Florida and then quickly moving away by Thursday night, Friday morning. But on the south end of that track, we do have severe weather potential near to the north, gusty winds and heavy rain potential. Our next storm forming in the Rockies, and you see the blue on the map and purples. That indicates significant snow in our higher elevations. We also see significant rain north of this track. It's going to be a cold, miserable rain in Nebraska and South Dakota, heading into Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and northern Illinois. And yes, we do have that severe weather potential, deepening low, strengthening flow aloft. You can see these red dashed lines start to spread out. That indicates diffluence and indicates stronger winds aloft and potentially severe weather on the warm sector here, especially tomorrow and early on Friday. That storm is going to move east-southeast and drench the mid-Atlantic states, including New York City, including Pennsylvania and the Chesapeake Bay area for the fifth straight weekend. We've got rain, yay! Say that sarcastically, of course. Behind it, a big dry air mass pushing all the way down into Florida early next week. It'll be cool and unsettled here around the Ohio Valley into the mid-Atlantic. And then as we go further into time, we could see a coastal low try to form near New England, where the rain is certainly not welcome anymore, but unfortunately looks to be in the forecast. Here's a look at our significant tornado parameter. This is where we could see a few tornadoes pop up. You see Florida highlighted. You also see Kansas and Nebraska highlighted. This would be early tomorrow around this time. And then tomorrow afternoon, keep an eye on things in Kansas and Nebraska. Also keep an eye on things moving across central Florida. And I'm going to zoom in and show you guys more of this here in a little bit. Here is our slight risk for severe weather now posted for the Western Peninsula up through the Big Bend here. Threat for tornadoes is 5%. Threat for severe wind is 15%. No hail expected out of this. The timeline's actually going to be overnight. So most of the severe weather threat is going to be well after midnight, probably between 2 and 6 in the morning. So if you are in this part of Florida, make sure you have multiple ways of receiving warnings, as something very quickly could pop up. That threat continues into tomorrow afternoon, mainly along I-4 and northward to almost Jacksonville, to St. Augustine, to Gainesville, and even all the way up to Steinhatchee here. And a threat for tornadoes still 5%, less of a severe wind threat, but it's just an ongoing threat from early in the morning tomorrow through early afternoon, about a 12-hour threat of severe weather. That moves out of here in time for Friday. Here's a look at those tornado ingredients. There'll be rotation with storms over the Gulf. Here you can see that threat starts to pick up around Clearwater and in Pinellas County, eventually Hillsborough County here around 3 in the morning, and then moving into the western part of Florida here early tomorrow, continuing across the peninsula here during the morning and early afternoon, and then lessening by the time we get to tomorrow evening. Here's a look at our NAM radar. Lots of rain over the Gulf, wet in Louisiana this afternoon, getting wet across Florida later in the day today. Very wet across Alabama and Georgia tonight, and the low country of South Carolina and North Carolina early in the day tomorrow. Then you can see kind of a line of showers and storms with gusty winds spreading south and east before our front moves out. And it could still be wet tomorrow night across this area, but I don't think we're going to see as much severe weather, just isolated activity. That's a look at Florida. Look at the wind gusts over the Gulf here. 50-mile-per-hour gusts possible just offshore, maybe even 60 over the oil platforms. And those winds are going to spread into Florida, so we could see wind gusts to 40 miles per hour tomorrow in Florida, up to 50 in Apalachicola and areas that were damaged by Hurricane Idalia. We're going to deal with strong winds, so make sure that debris is cleaned up if possible, which I know is a big ask right now. But certainly a lot of wind, also a lot of rain coming. We could see amounts over 2 inches in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, over 2 inches on the Emerald Coast, and 2 to 3 inches over southeast Georgia, over northern and central Florida. And the rain is needed. I know it's not welcome because you're going to get a little too much of a good thing here, but this rain is very much needed across this area in the longer term. So we will take that as a blessing if we can, but do be prepared for a little bit of flash flooding and some severe weather across this region. In the central United States, we are going to see a marginal risk for some hail later on tonight from northeastern Nebraska here all the way into west central Illinois. That includes Omaha, Des Moines, Council Bluffs, even Sioux City, and mainly overnight tonight. And as we head into tomorrow, a greater risk for severe weather with tornadoes and severe winds possible here, a slight risk over eastern and southern Nebraska, southwest Iowa, northwestern Missouri, and eastern and central Kansas. I would not be shocked even if Oklahoma had a marginal risk as we upgrade this here later tomorrow into early on Friday. Even a marginal risk for some tornadoes and severe winds on Friday over the St. Louis area, over Springfield, Peoria, all the way up to Chicago, DeKalb, and Rockford, Illinois, and across far eastern and southeastern Iowa on Friday. So we have to keep an eye on this storm as it moves eastward. There could be thunderstorms into Indiana and the Ohio River Valley here later in the day. The NAM model shows how things evolve here. You see our low pressure spinning, heavy snow in the mountains, heavy rain over northeastern Wyoming, spreading eastward along this boundary all the way into Illinois tomorrow morning. And then in the warm sector, we're watching showers and storms, which could turn locally severe. There's an arc here, which is never a good sign. That usually means fast-moving storms, maybe a few rotating supercells in here. And then you see that threat for stronger storms spreads east of the area and could impact St. Louis tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, but Friday afternoon. Significant tornado parameters, not super high, but we do have some parameters for a few tornadoes in here late tonight and mainly tomorrow morning. And then another wave potentially over Kansas. This, by the way, will be capped. There's strong wind shear, but there'll be a cap. So tornadoes are not likely into Oklahoma despite these indices. I know it's a little deceptive here, but you can see there is still a chance even into Friday over parts of Iowa and Missouri. It's not a great chance. Strong winds across this area. We'll see wind gusts 40 to 50 miles per hour coming out of the panhandles of Texas. Strong winds as well into Dakotas. Very strong over the mountains of both Wyoming, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico on the backside. As that colder air wraps in, we may see wind gusts over 80 miles per hour in the higher terrain. Rainfall will be pretty significant here, 1 to 3 inches, locally over 4 in South Dakota, Minnesota, maybe even northern Illinois. Chicago could see over 3 inches of rain, same with Madison, Wisconsin, and western Michigan. So a very unsettled start to our weekend and to this week. And not just rain we're talking about, but also snow here. This is the national blend of models, and it shows you a lot of snow later on this evening and right on through tonight into the first part of tomorrow. Amounts could get up to as high as 3 feet of snow over the Tetons, over the Bighorns here, and some amounts over a foot as well in the northern Rockies of Colorado and the Wasatch of Utah. So it is October, which means snow season begins here. Ski season will get cranking up as well. And look at these temperature contrasts. South of our boundary, 80s and 90s expected today, even 70s around Denver. And then take a look at tomorrow. We're tumbling into the 30s and 40s here in Wyoming, South Dakota. We're still warm across North Texas and western Oklahoma, but dropping into the 50s in Denver, and going to be a chilly day on Friday across this region as well. You can see very clearly where our boundary is, and take a look at Saturday. Temperatures tumbling in St. Louis, much cooler in Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Illinois, and only in the 40s in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan for Saturday. Won't be a very pleasant day for those college football games. Lows tonight, very mild here ahead of our storm system, then turning colder. Temperatures in Colorado drop from the 70s to the 30s here in less than 24 hours in typical Colorado fashion. And we're going to see teens and 20s at night tomorrow night here back in the Rockies. So our first push of almost wintry air in place here in time for the weekend. We'll see 40s down to Oklahoma City on Saturday and 30s, 40s, and low 50s here across Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri here by the weekend. That's a lot, folks. I have plenty more I'd love to talk about, but I just don't have the time today. As always, I appreciate you all and all that you do for me, for watching, for questions. Happy to answer those for you guys. Please do consider subscribing and sharing with your friends. And I do have a membership channel that is available. It's $9.99 a month if you'd like to support me on a more regular basis. You are the folks that I'm going to turn to first to respond to questions and help out. You don't have to do that. It is just something if you feel led to. It's about 33 cents a day. I'm not going to beg and sell it to you, but it does help me out. I'm going to be upgrading my equipment here soon. Getting ready to get a standing desk because sitting here just hasn't been good on my back. Probably be upgrading some other things as well. But I thank you all, of course. It's great to see this channel grow up to almost 15,000 subscribers. I would say it's all about me, but it really isn't. It's all about him, my God, my Savior, Jesus Christ, who has called me to do this. Honestly, this is my gift from God to you guys. This is my calling. Each and every one of you is special. Each and every one of you has been created by God, and you've been called to do something. In my opinion, it's to share the good news, to share the gospel that Jesus is coming again and that eternally you can live. We all go through difficult times. We all go through mourning, loss of loved ones, loss of jobs, poor health. And it is a huge struggle. It's something I've struggled with for many years. Even as a Christian, I've struggled with it. I believe we are here to struggle, but we are also here to realize that we can't do it all ourselves, that God is our uplifter. And I was reading Psalm 30 this morning, and I want to read a few verses to you from that. Psalm 30, 1 through 6. I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. O Lord, my God, I cried unto thee, and thou hast healed me. O Lord, thou hast brought up my soul from the grave. Thou hast kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Sing unto the Lord, O ye saints of his, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness, for his anger endureth not a moment. In his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. And in my prosperity I said, I shall never be moved. And David is weeping to the Lord in his most difficult, most vulnerable times, but he realizes that the Lord is here to keep him alive and to bring joy in the morning. There's this Christian song we sing in our church. This is how we overcome. And it says, gosh, I'm forgetting the lyrics, but it comes from this song. It says, your light broke through my night, restored exceeding joy. Your grace fell like the rain and made this desert live. You have turned my mourning into dancing. You have turned my sorrow into joy. Your hand lifted me up. I stand on higher ground. Your praise rose in my heart and made this valley sing. Why do Christians have joy? Because the Lord has taken our mourning and turned it into dancing, turned our sorrow into joy, and taken us out of the pit that we are in and brought us into a higher place. And there's a lot going on. This is a fallen world. There's a lot of mourning going on. My thoughts and prayers are with people dealing with the wartime right now on both sides. Israel, of course, but even on the Palestine side, for those that are just vulnerable to this. But I really believe that our God is a huge God, and that he is going to be able to restore joy to those folks, despite all of the trials and tribulations they're going through, despite the loss of life. I truly believe that accepting Jesus as our Savior, because he rose from the dead, we can do the same. We can't do it ourselves. We can just say, God, we trust in you. We trust in your promises that you will deliver us out of this pit into eternal life with Jesus Christ. And I want to pray for you, because I know you personally are struggling. Maybe not all of you, but many of you are. I can see it. I can feel it. I'm struggling, but I believe that turning to God and praying is the answer. I truly believe that there are great things ahead for many of us here. on our short times of earth are gone, that we can live eternally with Jesus Christ. And I really want to encourage you and lift you up. So I hope you all have a great day today. I'll have another video tomorrow morning before I travel for the rest of the week. But please be safe for those of you in the storm's paths. God bless you.